Amanda knew she was not allowed to open up the ancient Jesus statue she was tasked to repair, but when she figured out there was actually something inside there, she could not help her own curiosity. And so, without the church's knowledge, she cut the wooden statue open. But she found something inside that she was never supposed to see. Amanda was still in shock by what she had just seen after opening up the ancient Jesus statue. She could not believe that the church had been hiding this from everybody for what had to be decades or maybe even a century. Amanda wondered if the current pastor even had any idea about this. But either way, she was not going to tell him about it. He would probably just try to cover it up. This was something that she was going to go straight to the police with. The religious world would end up being completely shaken up by Amanda's discovery, and to think that a simple sound gave the secret away. But what had Amanda found inside the Jesus statue? Why did the police have to get involved? And what had the church been hiding for so long? But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. When Amanda received a note from the church, she was a little confused. She didn't know anyone at the church personally. They invited her to work on a secret project. They didn't mention what it would be, but it seemed important. Amanda wondered why they would ask her to work on this project, not a bigger, more skilled person. She accepted the invitation, and in a few days, the whole town knew about it. She started to hear gossip about what she was meant to restore. She listened to the craziest things: old paintings, enchanted bells, and even a coffin of the late priest. But they weren't even close. This was something far more important. Amanda met with the priest. He told her what she had to restore, and she couldn't believe what she was hearing. This was far bigger than she anticipated. She had never done anything like this before. But Amanda isn't one to give up easily. She knew she could restore this piece to its old glory, no matter what it took. Many people heard that Amanda was to restore the famous old Jesus statue, and many people disagreed. Everyone loved that statue. They didn't believe Amanda was capable of getting the job done, but Amanda was about to prove them wrong. It did not help that Amanda was not a religious person, and although she was born in a small town, she had spent most of her adulthood elsewhere before moving back to open the shop. This fact angered some of the more devoted congregants. It seemed like blasphemy that someone like Amanda would care for their savior on earth. But Amanda brushed off the negativity. It was true the project could have gone to a bigger firm in nearby cities or a more religious shop in their town, but it had gone to her, and she would not be discouraged. The statue would be arriving in a day, and after that she would have a week to restore it before service on Easter Sunday. It was clear that she was not the only one feeling the pressure. The senior pastor himself was present the next morning to supervise the delivery of the statue. He explained the history of the statue and how it had come to the ownership of the church. Amanda smiled and nodded, knowing the profile would help ensure she used the right tools. But before leaving, the pastor mentioned something else. Amanda had listened intently and was excited to put the knowledge to use. But the pastor was not done. He had one last crucial detail to share with Amanda. He shared that Amanda was not to worry about strange happenings that might occur in the following week. He explained in a comforting tone that the artifact was holy, and although it attracted mystic powers, it would also protect her. Amanda nodded at the older gentleman. She thanked him and told him that she would keep that in mind. But internally, she was rolling her eyes. She was not a religious person and even less of a believer in mystical forces. All she wanted was to get started on the project that would either make or break her career going forward. Strange powers. Yeah, right. Finally, the pastor and moving crew were gone. Amanda spent the rest of the day doing a more thorough inspection of the statue. This would help her get a better understanding of the damages and how she would tackle the repair process. A history profile was good, but it was clear the church had a tendency to embellish on details. By the time Amanda came up from her workroom, the sun had set. She stretched her arms. She was exhausted and eager to head home. Checking the time, she frowned. It was a good thing that she had come up now. It was already late evening. Grabbing her things and turning off the lights, Amanda was about to shut the door when she heard a strange noise. Amanda paused in alarm. What could that sound possibly be, and where had it come from? She had never heard it before, and she had rented the small town shop for a little over 3 years. Amanda was confused, but she was certain of one thing: the noise had come from inside the shop. Amanda took a few steps back into the store. She did a quick search of the building to see if a small animal had broken in, but she found nothing. None of her artifacts were out of place. She waited a few more minutes but heard nothing. She shook her head and decided it was a fluke. but she would soon discover how wrong she was. The next morning, Amanda returned to the store bright and early. She was eager to get to work on the wooden piece she had left covered on her table, but there was also another reason. She wanted to inspect the store once more. Opening the door, she went through the store and discovered nothing amiss. However, she couldn't fight the odd sensation that niggled her. She laughed at herself. It seemed the old pastor's words may have gotten to her after all. Focusing on her assignment, she plotted out her work and began dismantling the fragile parts of the wooden piece. She would need to repair them separately before reattaching the artifact as a whole. She had gotten the edges off when things took a strange turn. Using her small wood saw, she carefully worked through the more rigid parts of the statue. The hands. It was a delicate design, so Amanda knew she would need to be careful. But before she could dig in, she heard a familiar sound from last night. Amanda could not believe it. There was no mistaking it this time. She had not been hallucinating out of exhaustion. She also held another advantage from last night. She knew exactly where the sound was coming from. However, this knowledge did not put her at ease, because the noise had come from inside the statue. Amanda jumped back in alarm. The noise was startling, but even more concerning to the shop owner were the consequences she began outlining in her mind. Had she damaged this historical artifact? Was this mystical statue physically reacting to her cutting? It was not a logical explanation, but staring down at the statue, she could not think of one. Now Amanda frowned. She was making no sense. There was a perfectly logical explanation. The statue was hollow and old. It was clear that cutting into the wood was causing air pressure to seep out in force. This was the cause of the disturbing sound. At least she hoped it was. But as she bent down to take a look at the cut, she was shocked to realize that the cut had not been deep enough to penetrate the wood. There was simply no room for air to escape, or for any damage to be done. The cause of the sound was still unknown. Now her initial fear was replaced with deep curiosity. What was happening? Holding the hand steadily. This time, with more precision, Amanda cut into the wooden hand, pressing the hilt of the small wooden saw into the statue to prevent deep damage. She went in slowly but with enough force to sever the hand. However, like the night before, the sound was gone. With a brush, Amanda got rid of the sawdust on her hands, after which she took out her phone. Now, with the phone's flashlight on, the curious woman tried to get a look into the statue through the hole that she'd just made. It did not do much, so Amanda started wiggling the statue slightly to see if the sound came again. She had no luck and was dumbfounded, but not yet done with her attempt. The woman had already crossed the line and broke contract of the church she had signed by removing the statue's hand. Thus, as far as Amanda was concerned, she might as well go a bit further now. But she needed to be extremely careful. There was a technique Amanda knew that enabled her to reattach the hand in a way that made it very unlikely for anybody at the church to notice the alteration. She had also a strong desire to look into the statue's torso, although this might be more difficult. There was no wooden piece that she could easily cut off in order to take a look without doing any permanent damage, she thought. Amanda would have to make a big hole somewhere, which would be really difficult to fill again without it looking any different. Did she have to abandon her mission? After thinking it over for a couple of minutes, Amanda actually did find a perfect spot on the statue's rear that enabled her to continue what she had started. She thought it would be possible to cut open the butt of the Jesus statue, as she assumed the church would never look at this place of Jesus. Amanda looked at the statue from a little further away. The butt of the statue was definitely sticking a bit out, so she could quite easily cut a large part of it off. By knocking on the wood and pressing her ear against the statue's back, she could listen to the echo. This way, Amanda determined that she could see into the entire torso from here. If she was really perusing her desire to know what had been making this strange sound, this was her best chance. Amanda realized that this was one of her most exciting moments of her career, and yet it was also extremely risky. Even though it could ruin her whole image as an established woodworker, she grabbed her tools and got started. In the 30 minutes that followed, throughout the whole process the sound was not to be heard. She started to doubt whether her earlier observations regarding the sound weren't exaggerated. Amanda had a knot in her stomach from every cut she was making. What if the church were to find out? If they would, the church group, especially the members that had already been skeptical of her executing this assignment, would definitely inform the police of her breach of contract. In an even worser case scenario, however, she could imagine that the religious higher-up might be even less forgiving than the local group. But luckily, all of those concerning thoughts quickly went to the back of her mind the moment she finally managed to cut open the butt of the statue. The hollow inside was finally exposed, and the damage done could probably be restored. And more importantly, Amanda immediately saw that there was something inside. With her hands nearly shaking, Amanda reached into the statue and pulled something out of the darkness of the statue's empty hollow. She had no precise idea of what she actually was looking at, but even with her limited knowledge, she could see that this was not supposed to be in here. Amanda put that which she had gotten out of the statue on the workbench and looked at it from up close. It was a small device of some sort, although Amanda could not immediately determine the purpose of it. So this was supposed to be an ancient and untouched statue that no one had ever seen the inside of. So much for that. It was clear from the fact that the device could not have been made a very long time ago, that someone must have placed it there probably in the last 20 to 25 years or so. Who would do something like this? And with what interests? And what even is the function of this device? Amanda thought it over on her own, whether it would be a smart idea to disclose her findings with the church. Maybe someone over there would have knowledge of this device, although she thought then they would probably have not. After a bit of deliberation, she decided against her proposal to inform them. There was not much to win by doing it, she thought. If they would know what this was and why it was hidden in the statue, they would probably not be happy at all with her opening it up and thereby showing it to the world. Even worse, if this would be the case, they could also try to silence her. With this scary realization in the back of her mind, Amanda decided that someone else had to know about it for her own safety. It would be best to call the police so that they could advise her on this matter. Additionally, the police team would probably have an easier time finding the purpose of this device as well. At first, the officers she spoke to were skeptical and confused by Amanda's call and questioned why she would cut open something as holy as a Jesus statue. It was a religious area and therefore her action would be considered as very strange. Still, a police team came out to meet Amanda. On the phone, though, she was already warned that if the device would be something not very significant, she would have to be held responsible for property damage. Her contract with the church allowing her to not do anything unasked to the statue could even made this worse. Still, with full determination, Amanda accepted this risk. The police came a little over 20 minutes later in her little shop. Amanda was very nervous, but when she saw how the policemen reacted to her findings, she knew that she had made the right decision. When they saw the device on the workbench, they immediately knew what they were dealing with. The team made contact with their boss, and within minutes a decision was made. They did not want to waste any time, which explained why they were taking the object and Amanda to the police car and drove to the church immediately. At location, the police started confronting the pastor, who had no idea what was coming to him. Amanda saw from about 10 meters away how the officers questioned the pastor. At one point, one of them took out the device, after which it was clear that the pastor knew there was no way out of this situation. He was busted and would have to face the consequences of his actions. Amanda stood there in complete confusion. While the dejected pastor was quickly being arrested, the officer that had first recognized the device turned to Amanda. He started the conversation by saying that the whole scene must have looked very odd from her perspective. Nevertheless, he was finally willing to explain to her what this object actually was. What it looked like now was that the pastor had put a recording device in the Jesus statue that Amanda had been working on. The officer's theory that had been partly confessed was that the pastor wanted to know about the private confessions people often made to the Jesus statue when they would visit the church. He could use that information against the churchgoers or make them believe that he knew about all their sins and that coming back and supporting the church was the only way to redeem themselves. If this would turn out to be all true, the pastor would be lawfully as well as religiously punished for this crime. A few weeks later, this story turned out to be the truth indeed. The sound that Amanda had heard from the inside of the statue was a notification that the battery was nearly empty and needed replacing. By this coincidence and due to her determination to discover the sound, Amanda prevented harm for many future churchgoers. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscription, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories.